Hello everybody and welcome back to another video, and yep, the Canadians did it again. They win 3-2 in overtime over the Nashville Predators, and definitely an interesting game all around, but hey, a win is a win. And in my books, and definitely in theirs, anytime you can get 2 points in the standings is a big deal. Even if we were able to get one out of the way that game was going, that would have been something for sure. But to get 2 points there, Cole Caufield another 2 goal game. Just it definitely an up and down performance for the Canadians, but yeah, great to get 2 points there. Great to get a win. Yeah, but I just generally the overall feeling from that game was just the Canadians just looking very sloppy, a little bit slow throughout most of the game there. They're very lucky to come out with 2 points, in my opinion. Definitely just throughout like the first, period and a half or whatever, there's just nothing really going for the Canadians. They had some chances, but a lot of just sloppy play, a lot more of just, not getting pucks out of the zone, all that kind of stuff. The Predators weren't necessarily super capable of shutting them down. They didn't score too much off of our defensive mistakes, but, we weren't able to really capitalize either. We had another game where I think we were 0 for 3 on the power play. Yeah, 0 for 3 on the power play. Just the power play is just not working for the Canadians right now. I just feel like I don't know when we're gonna wake up and try to fix that, but just the current lineup that we have going on right now is just not working. We're not, every time we're in there, it looks like we're kind of panicked, trying to keep possession of the puck, and just the penalty kill that's out there. And credit to the Nashville penalty kill. I think they did a good job against us tonight, but at the same time, it's just like it just looks like we're a little bit panicked out there. We're not really possessing the way that you'd like for us to be. So that's kind of frustrating there. I'd really like to see Demidov on that first unit. It's just like every time he's on the ice, he's a difference maker. He's making ridiculous passes out there, and especially with the way that Cole Caufield has been playing so far this year, looks like he's definitely got his scoring touch going early in the season like he did last year. I feel like having Demidov there to give him and feed him pucks for goals on the power play, I think that would definitely translate to, goals on the power play. Moving guys around, just, like I just think, like, I understand wanting to have Slav on the first power play. I feel like he is just much more suited to be a, net front kind of guy. Like, he's shown he's able to tip pucks and that kind of stuff. And he's 6'4" for God's sake. So I feel like it makes way more sense to have him, on the net front and, move everybody else around. Maybe put Suzuki like in the bumper position or something like that. And then have Cole Demidov on either wing. But no matter what they do, I feel like you can't have this go on for too many games without realizing that the current lineups on the power play are just not working for us. So it'll be interesting to see what they do. But moving on to the general game, first period, absolutely nothing happened both ways. It was just kind of we had some chances, but we just weren't really able to capitalize. We didn't really get a lot of zone time or anything like that. Second period, Steven Stamkos scores his first of the season. He kind of just throwing the puck on net, and unfortunately, Gooley's skate was right in a position where he was able to redirect that in past Dobesh. So that's unfortunate, but what are you gonna do? Those kind of plays happen all the time. I think people are starting to call that kind of an epidemic in the NHL of defensemen putting pucks in their own net just off of redirections or whatever. So that'll happen. You'd like to get a little bit more pressure on Steven Stamkos, considering the kind of player that he is, especially on the power play. But that's just the way that goes. So oh well, can't do too much about that. And then moving into the third period, Oliver Kapanen gets his third of the year. Kind of, he was just kind of parked out front. Nobody really, taking advantage of, getting him out of that position. He was just kind of parked right out front there. He was able to get kind of a shot off a rebound and then got another rebound off of Saros and was able to put the second rebound through. So nice for him, just to be parked out front and keep jamming away at it until it goes in. So I think overall, Kapanen didn't really have a very impressive game. I don't know. Just it just didn't really seem like he was doing too much. He's been looking okay so far this year. Definitely early on, he was looking really good, but I think he's sort of mellowed out a little bit. So, and he's young, so I guess it makes sense that, he's going to have some some uptime and downtime, that kind of stuff. Just, a young player. But I would like to see him play a little bit better, maybe even just swap him out with Veleno. I think especially considering the way that we saw Veleno play in the preseason, it'd be really interesting to see how he would do in the regular season. I don't know where they'd put him lineup wise. Maybe move, Demidov up or something like that. But it'd be interesting to see the way that he would be able to play. Considering how we saw him play in the preseason, but also Kapanen, he's scoring goals. He's got 3 on the year. He's got more than a lot of our guys, so can't complain too much. But yeah, definitely not his best game. So it'll be interesting to see what they do there. And then Perbix, Nick Perbix for Nashville scores pretty much right after that, like 5 minutes later. Mike Matheson kind of does a little coast to coast action. He's able to kind of, bring the puck. He's like coming up the right wall and he kind of cuts to the middle and tries to tuck it far side, but it almost scored. It was a nice play, but the unfortunate part of that is that nobody was really covering his position defensively. So he was pretty much all the way at the goal line, and then when that puck got saved away, it went the other way pretty much right away, and it became a 2-on-1, and Perbix was able to just kind of snipe that one far side, short side, far side, kind of like under the blocker area. So a nice play by Matheson to try to get some offense, but unfortunately, when you don't have anybody covering on D, then it leads to chances the other way. Kind of looked like a 3-on-3 overtime situation, which is definitely unnecessary considering the fact that it's a tie game in the third period. So yeah, I mean, you like to see defensemen kind of step up and try to make offensive plays when possible, but not at the expense of goals on the other end. So it was a little bit unfortunate the way that worked out, but is what it is. You would just like to see either Matheson be a little bit more cautious about where he's at, but really you would like to see a forward kind of a stick back while he's doing that, to be playing defense, covering for him if that puck ends up shooting back out like it did. So unfortunate there. You can't really blame Dobesh too much either. It's a 2-on-1. You're trying to play both, pass and shot, so it's tough. But then, you go all the way to the end of the game. This is where it gets absolutely insane for the Canadians. At that point, I was like, yeah, like that's gonna be the game winner. It didn't look like the Canadians had any sort of offensive opportunities going for them at all. Just nothing really looked like it was working for them all game. But then, we pull the goalie. We have a bunch of chances that don't really go our way. I think Demidov has a chance, pretty much an open net, but I think it got saved away by a Nashville defenseman. It was kind of just like a weak shot that was going into the net, but got blocked by a skate of the defenseman. So unfortunate there. Would have been nice to see Demidov get a nice game tying goal, but instead the puck is kind of coming out. It looks like it's going to be scored into the empty net by Nashville, but then Lane Hutson is able to play some goalie there, get a Vezina play going in for him, and so he's able to kind of like block that on his chest, comes right down to his stick. He's able to immediately kind of zip the pass up, and Cole Caufield is waiting on pretty much the far blue line, is waiting for that puck to be saved. I don't know if he expected that to be the case. Maybe he was just hoping that it would work out that way and he'd get a shot. But yeah, Lane Hutson was able to make a really nice heads up play, not only to block that pass, but then have the presence of mind to immediately pass that back up for an offensive opportunity. And Cole Caufield took full advantage. He was able to just come in and just rip that thing, Phil Kessel like under the blocker. So that was pretty awesome. With less than 20 seconds left, just kind of carried it in, rip like close side just under the blocker, tie that game up. So a really great play at both ends, with Hutson making that save and then Caufield coming down the other way and scoring. And it's just like, it's just an unbelievable play. It's the second time in a row that we've kind of tied it up late. This one a lot later than, the first one. But we take it no matter what, and that's Caufield's fourth of the season there, so that was exciting. And then we went to overtime. Most of overtime was pretty uneventful. Just, I mean, not uneventful, but no scoring, obviously. A lot of chances both ways. Suzuki had a couple chances. He got a nice pass from Demidov, kind of like dragging two guys over to him and then making a nice sauce pass over to Suzuki. He ripped it right off of the crossbar and out, which is unfortunate. You'd like to see Suzuki, especially since he hasn't scored a goal this season yet. You'd like to see him get one there, but and a nice play by Demidov as well. It's just another another example of him just being a very dynamic player. He's really he's got the vision. So a nice play there. Couple nice chances. Suzuki, I think, had like three different chances in the overtime frame where he was that close to being able to score one, just couldn't quite do it. But then at the end of the day, you got to give it to Cole, right? So. And then Dobesh had a very nice save kind of in before that. There was like a 2-on-0 the other way, and then Hutson kind of like backchecked really hard to make it a 2-on-1. So he kind of saved the day a little bit, but Dobesh made a nice glove save, tried to play it out, but it got whistled down. But then, yeah, Suzuki made a really nice play at the end of that overtime frame. He was able to kind of cut to the front, looked like he was going to shoot, but he gave it up to Caufield. Caufield kind of just like one time, like on hand one time, just like tapped it into the short side. 2 seconds left. He immediately skates over to Dobesh to congratulate him on the win. So, just an absolutely unbelievable end of the game. Again, Cole Caufield back-to-back overtime winners at home. He's now tied for the franchise lead in overtime goals, which is pretty cool. Somebody might have to tell me when like overtime was like established in the NHL, but regardless, it's pretty cool to be even close to having like a franchise record with the Canadiens, considering their history. And so he's tied for the lead now with 10 overtime goals, and I don't see him slowing down anytime soon. So I'm sure we'll see him take the lead in that at some point. But yeah, just an overall a crazy end of the game. Caufield's got 5 goals, so very impressive for him, and a win is a win. And with that win, the Canadiens extend their win streak to 4 games in a row since losing their season opening game against the Toronto Maple Leafs. They're actually, as of 9:30 p.m. on Thursday, second in the NHL in terms of points with 8, trailing only the Colorado Avalanche, who are 4-0-1. I think we've been talking about having a good start. To start the year. It's definitely something we didn't do previously. Like previous years, we had a slow start, and last year we had a slow start, and then we had to kind of crawl back in February to April to kind of make up for that. So this year we're kind of doing a little bit better. We set out to have a strong start, and so far we are 4-1-0. You can't really complain too much about that. So yeah, I mean that's great. It's good to see. That being said, though, like some of these wins are not exactly textbook. You'd love to see a little bit more offense, especially on the power play. I think the power play is just the number one thing that's just like it's just not working. Outside of that, though, I mean, obviously Cole Caufield doing really well, but the entire first line, I feel like 5-on-5 is just not really doing it for me right now. I think that's kind of the best way I can describe it. It's just like they're just not really. It doesn't really seem like they're a big threat. Like whenever I see like Newhook and Demidov out there, or like the second line with Doc and Gallagher, Bolduc, I feel like they're a lot more dynamic 5-on-5 and able to make those chances happen. Whereas the first lines out there, it just kind of seems like they're struggling early. So it's definitely good to see that we have the depth in this lineup that we can kind of get away with that. But you would love to see, especially Suzuki, goal scoring wise, get a little bit better there. Obviously, he's still leading our team. I believe he's got 7 points so far this season for us. So he's doing well. Cole also with 7 points. Racking up those goals. He's got 4 goals in the last 2 games. So last year he was in the Rocket conversation a month in, and maybe he'll be in a similar position. I think I'm not sure where we're at in terms of who's leading the league in goals. It's actually tied right now between Shane Pinto, Pavel Dorofeyev, and Mark Scheifele and Cole Caufield, all of which have 5 goals. So, in an interesting group of four, honestly, in terms of who's leading the league right now. I would have thought maybe Draisaitl would be on there or somebody like that, but. Yeah, so I think there's definitely some positives. Obviously, like the fact that we're winning games. Dobesh looked great today. I don't think any of the goals were really his fault tonight. So, like it's good to see that. It's just yeah, I just like to see as we get a little bit deeper into the season here, I'd like to see our team get a little bit more solid throughout a 60-minute performance. Maybe win some games in regulation instead of only having one regulation win out of 4, or 2 regulation wins out of 4, but almost only one because of that Chicago game was just barely a regulation win for us. So, yeah, yeah, I think it's like obviously it's game 5, right? Like it's something to work on, something that'll just come as we go. But I think it's just it's just you have the expectations. You want to be a solid team, and we are right now. I just think that especially once we start playing, some of the top teams in the NHL, we're gonna want to bring our best effort and have a really consistent performance against them. So I think we'll have some work to do. I think in the lineups and also just the way that the guys are playing to make that happen. But yeah, so that's kind of all I got for today. I think a win's a win. That's kind of the mantra so far this year. It doesn't really matter how you wing it. It's you're not going to have a solid performance every single game. So the fact that they were able to win this one despite not really having a great performance overall is definitely a positive. So we'll see what they can do as we keep going throughout the season. The Canadiens have got yet another home game against the New York Rangers coming up on Saturday night, so that'll be a good one. The Rangers have been kind of touch and go. They just lost in overtime 2-1 against the Toronto Maple Leafs, so it'll be interesting to see how we fare against them. I think the Rangers are definitely a very hot and cold team. Like they're either scoring a ton of goals or just not scoring at all. So. It'll be interesting to see how we play against those guys. Obviously, Shesterkin, like one of the best goalies in the world right now. So it'll be interesting to see how we're able to perform against him, and if we can kind of shut down the offense of the New York Rangers. But yeah, that remains to be seen. So yeah, I will leave that to there. I will see you guys on Saturday.